She's 23. He's 47. Everyone has an opinion. Your friends, your church, maybe even your own fears. But what does God actually say? Because the Bible does mention age gap relationships, just not the way you think. I'm going to show you 3 biblical couples everyone uses to justify age gaps and why they're completely misunderstanding the context. Then I'll reveal the one verse that changes everything about power, maturity, and God's design for relationships. By the end, you'll know exactly what God says, not what your pastor thinks he says. Let's start with the big one. Abraham and Sarah. He's 100, she's 90 when Isaac is born. People say, see, God blessed their age gap. But here's what they don't tell you. Abraham and Sarah were the same generation. They grew up in the same era, same culture, same life stage. When Abraham was 20, Sarah was 10. No, she was likely a teenager when he was in his 20s. Ancient marriages happen young for both parties. The age gap existed in years, not in power or life experience. That's the key. Next, Boaz and Ruth. Everyone loves this story, the older, godly man rescuing the younger widow. But check this out. The Bible never tells us Boaz's age. Tradition assumes he was older, but the text just calls him a man of standing, meaning wealthy and reputable. He could have been 30. Ruth could have been 25. We don't know. What we do know? Ruth chose Boaz. She had agency, she had options, and Boaz honored that agency. He didn't manipulate, isolate, or groom her. Finally, the one that makes people uncomfortable, Joseph and Mary. Historians suggest Mary may have been very young by today's standards, likely a young teenager, while Joseph was older. But here's the context Christians skip. This wasn't about romance or attraction. This was about survival in a patriarchal society where unwed mothers were stoned. God worked within a broken cultural system to protect Mary and Jesus. That doesn't mean he endorsed that system. Jesus himself spent his ministry dismantling toxic power structures. And before we go on, let me say this clearly, because it needs to be said in today's world, the Bible does not give permission for adults to pursue minors. Not culturally, not spiritually, not emotionally. In every biblical context, God protects the vulnerable. He doesn't hand them over. A minor cannot give biblical consent, emotional consent, or spiritual consent. That's not an age gap. That's a violation, and God stands against that every single time. Now here's the verse that changes everything. 1 Corinthians 7:36 says, "If anyone thinks that he is not behaving properly toward his betrothed, if his passions are strong, and it has to be, let him do as he wishes. Let them marry, it is no sin." Notice the key phrase, if he is not behaving properly. Paul is saying, your behavior toward her matters more than your desire for her. Now look at what modern age gap relationships often involve. Isolation from friends and family. Financial control. You're so mature for your age. Moving too fast emotionally. Dismissing concerns as jealousy. Does that sound like behaving properly? Or does it sound like exploitation dressed in biblical language? Here's another one. Ephesians 5:21 says, "Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ." Mutual submission. You can't have mutual submission when one person has all the life experience, all the financial resources, and all the social capital. That's not marriage. That's mentorship at best, manipulation at worst. So what are the red flags God actually cares about? First, predatory patterns. If he's 40 and has a history of dating women in their early 20s, and those relationships keep ending badly, that's worth examining, because God cares about patterns, and patterns reveal character. Proverbs 26:11 talks about this. Second, isolated discipleship. He says, I'm mentoring you spiritually, but only in private, only at his house, only when you're vulnerable. Jesus discipled in community, in public, with witnesses. Any spiritual leader who isolates you is operating outside God's design. Matthew 18:20 reminds us where 2 or 3 gather, he is there. Third, premature intensity. He's 35, you're 21, and within 3 months he's talking marriage, destiny. God told me you're the one. God doesn't rush, abusers do. Song of Solomon 2:7 says, "Do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires." That means natural timing, not manufactured urgency. So what does God say? Look at the actual pattern in Scripture. First principle, equality of life stage. Isaac and Rebekah, both young, both transitioning to marriage at the same time. Jacob and Rachel, both working, both building a future. God's design isn't about numbers, it's about mutual growth. Second principle, public accountability. Every healthy biblical relationship had community. Boaz went through the elders. Jacob negotiated with Laban. Even arranged marriages had family involvement. If your relationship can't survive scrutiny, it's not from God. Proverbs 11:14 says, "In the multitude of counselors, there is safety." Third principle, freedom to choose. Ruth could have said no to Boaz. Rebekah was asked if she'd go with Abraham's servant. Even in patriarchal cultures, God honored agency. If he's pressuring you, spiritually, emotionally, financially, that's not love. That's control. Here's the bottom line. Age gaps aren't the problem. Power gaps are. If you're in an age gap relationship and you have freedom to disagree, your own support system, equal say in decisions, and time to develop naturally, then you're probably fine. But if you're isolated, rushed, or constantly told you wouldn't understand, you're younger. That's not biblical. That's abuse hiding behind a Bible verse. God doesn't want you safe in a relationship. He wants you safe from the wrong one. If this helped you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more biblical truth that cuts through the nonsense, subscribe. Because next week we're talking about the Pharisees and religious manipulation. Stay free, stay wise, and remember, God's design is always for your freedom, never for your control.